Good morning. We're ready to start our program. It's my pleasure to introduce the mayor of the city of Cerritos, the Honorable Naresh Shalenki. Mayor?
Good morning. I'm pleased to welcome you to the City of Cerritos Veterans Day ceremony. Thank you to everyone, especially all the veterans, for attending today's ceremony. I would also like to thank Cerritos College Community Band for providing today's prelude music. At this time, I'm pleased to introduce my City Council colleagues, Mayor Pro Tem Frank Aurelio Yokoyama, Council Member and former Mayor Jim Edward, Council Member and former Mayor Grace Yu, Council Member and former Mayor Mark Polido. I'm also delighted to introduce our special guest on the stage, Chief Warrant Officer 5, Tom Murphy of the California State Guard, and the U.S. Army Chaplain Erickson. I now like to invite Council Member Hugh to make an introduction.
Good morning. It's my honor to introduce U.S. Army Chaplain Captain Talon Erickson for today's invocation.
Good morning. I invite you to pray with me in your own faith tradition as I pray in mine. Most gracious God, let us remember this Veterans Day, those who sacrificed their lives, their family members, their well-being during times of war in order that we might have freedom and liberty and security. I also pray for the quick and safe return of service members who are right now in harm's way. Let us remember our veterans, both living and dead, who fought on land, in the air, and on the water. The men and women in labor and industry who provided the machinery and tools necessary to secure victory on the battlefield. The families who sacrificed their loved ones, who prayed for them, who kept their spirits up by letters and phone calls and supported them on the home front. Let us remember Lieutenant Colonel Mario Corazzo, who paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedoms. And may we also remember and always honor his family who sent him off to war knowing the dangers he might face. Never let us forget those veterans who left behind all that they love, their families, their homes, and their lives. Because to preserve these precious things is the goal for which each soldier strives. And God bless our troops, the courageous men and women who fight to make sure the bells of freedom ring again. In your holy name, amen.
Thank you, Captain Karen Erickson. And now I'd like to introduce former Mayor and Council Member Mark Polito.
Thank you, Grace. Good morning, Cerritos, and happy Veterans Day to all of you, especially to our veterans and all our veteran families. Ladies and gentlemen, at this time, please stand and pay respect to our nation's colors as Southeast Academy Military and Law Enforcement High School Color Guard, led by Cadet Color Sergeant Rafain Som, approaches, and please remain standing as members of Scout Troop 693, Scout Troop 72, and Cub Pack 72 lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. At this time, I would also like to invite to the front of the stage Valley Christian High School Madrigals, who will sing the National Anthem following the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Those in uniform, salute. Those not in uniform, put your right hand over your heart. Please recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Okay, please stay risen for the National Anthem.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glares above bursting in air gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave, home of the brave.
Wonderful.
You may be seated. And let's give another round of applause to all of our students, our scouts, and our color guard. At this time, I'd like to introduce to you our Mayor Pro Tem, the Honorable Frank Aurelio Yokoyama.
Welcome to the City of Cerritos Veterans Day ceremony. I'm honored to introduce the special guests who are joining us here today for this very special ceremony. Again, our legislator, Assembly Member Cristina Garcia, 58th District. And thank you again to Chief Warrant Officer 5, Tom Murphy, California State Guard, and U.S. Army Chaplain, Captain Talan Erickson. We also have Tony Perez, Field Deputy for Senator Bob Archuleta, 32nd District. With the Cerritos Planning Commission, we have Vice Chair Larry Sagert and Commissioner Jennifer Hong. With the Parks and Recreation Commission, we have Vice Chair Richard Martinez and Commissioner Pat Naik. With the Property Preservation Commission, we have Vice Chair John Dawson. With the Fine Arts and Historical Commission, we have Chair Janet Beach and Commissioner Karen Wilson. With the Economic Development Commission, we have Commissioner Robert Buell. With the Community Safety Committee, we have Committee Member Kei Fujimura and Committee Member Richard Yu. With the Let Freedom Ring Committee, we have Committee Member Monica Valentine and Committee Member Candy Yee. We have former Cerritos Mayor and Council Member Don Canabi and former Los Angeles County Supervisor. We have former Mayor and Council Member Sherman Tappy and former Mayor and Council Member Robert Hewlett. From our ABC School Board, President Ernie Nishi, and Clerk Sophia Say. From our Los Angeles County Fire Department, Assistant Fire Chief Patrick Errett. And from our Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department, from our Cerritos Station, Captain Joseph Nunez. And also from our Cerritos Station, Operations Lieutenant Ann Devane. Thank you to our special guests for joining us. And now I'd like to call up Council Member Jim Edwards. Also, from our Parks and Recreation Commission, Kit Snyder.
Thank you. Good morning and welcome today. I also want to recognize the beautiful American flag by Station 30 here. If you turn around and look behind you, just signifies the great country we live in. Thank you to all the firefighters from 30 and 35. This time is one of my favorite times because it's Veterans Day and that's what we're here to honor. Today we will list a number of names that you have filled out that in memory of some of your family and friends that have gone before us and have served our great country. I will read those names, and then after that I want to introduce the veterans that are here today. If as I say your name, if you will stand, and then give the next name, if you'll be seated, we'll keep moving on. And I have to apologize ahead of time. I have not seen these names in advance, and I hope I pronounce your name correctly. I'll do the best I can. These are the veterans that you filled out cards for that have gone before us and have served our great country. William George O'Donnell, Navy. Billy William Hader Dillon, Army. Terry Keachbaum, Air Force. John Somerville, Navy. Arthur Skiles, Army. John Skiles, Army. Lieutenant Mario Carrazzo, United States Marine Corps. Aaron Sadler, Navy. George McMurphy, they checked 1st New Hampshire Revolutionary War. That's a long time ago. Even I wasn't ever knew. That's a surprise. We haven't had that before. For his family that are here today, welcome. Albert Bowman, Navy. John Bowman, Navy. Tony Pingish, Marine Corps. Gary Collin, Marine Corps. Elaine Fee, Navy. Ray Vargas, Navy. Joseph Tislow, Air Force. Roy Tislow, Army. Bill Tislow, Army. Walter Tislow, Army. Roy Tislow Jr., Army. Quite a family, huh? Sergeant Major Kicharni, Marine Corps. Ralph Barbareo, Navy. Mano Carrazzo, Marine Corps. Keith Nishi, Army. Joseph Seitz, Air Force. Bud Connor, Army. Mel Curon, Air Force. Jim Cavender, Army. George Michaels and James Ralston, Navy. Bob Hewlett Sr., Army. Malcolm Wimpress, Merchant Marines, World War II. Phil Flew, United States Army, World War I. Alfred Lagney, Army. John Skiles, Army. Jack Cappy, Army. Roland Polito, Navy. Jose Polito, Navy. Rodolfo Polito, Navy. Tom Premish, Army. Albert Gaberton, Navy. Carl Beach, Marine Corps. Edward Gaffman, Army. Teddy Soa, Navy. Fred Buell, Army. Harold Buell, Army. Ralph Buell, Army. Albert Buell, Marine Corps. Bruce Buell, Navy. I think they got them all just about here. Henry Ford, Army. Joseph Petta, Army. Bernard Forgas, Navy. Pete Avalos, Marine Corps. Jack Lynn Wheatley, Marine Corps. Glenn D. Wheatley, Army. Fernando Flores, Air Force. Andy Flores, Army. Larry Flores, Navy. Al Flores, Navy. Ed Flores, U.S. Army Air Corps. Lieutenant Ken Christensen, Army. Herbert Elfman, Army. Jesse Page, Army. James Page, Navy. Frank Page, Army. Fisher Page, Army. William Page, Army. Arthur Page, Army. Robert Crane, Army. Captain John Hom, Navy. Estevago Japor, Navy. Theodore Calvin Edwards, Air Force and Army. Earl Francis Edwards, United States Navy. And John David Edwards, U.S. Army. These are the ones that have gone before us. Many of you can see that many of the families had numerous members of their family that stepped up and served in our armed forces. Now I'd like to recognize those that are here today that have filled out a card. And again, if you'll stand and then be seated at the next card. Vincent Dunn, Army. Robert Muse, Marine Corps. Christopher Muse, Marine Corps. Tom Yokoyama, Army. Henry Spurgeon, Army. Harold San Miguel, Navy. Excuse me while I turn these right side up, some of them. Rico Hall. I saw Rico. Air Force. Tom Tislow. Are we not standing? I know some of you are here that I've seen. There we go. All right. Fred LaCourte, Navy. Ryan LaCourte, Army. Anna Caruso, Navy. David Parrott, Marine Corps. Ray Lovell, Army. Daniel Seitz, Air Force. Jeffrey Seitz, Air Force. Bill Newhouse, Air Force. Peter Kim, Army. Edward McCormick, Air Force. Brian Caron, Army. Donald Brown, Navy. George Sy, Air Force. Jeffy Mathis, Navy. Rodolfo Lagatan, Navy. Past Mayor and County Supervisor, Mr. Don Kanabe, United States Navy. Anthony Aquino, Army. Tom Yee, Marine Corps. Barry Rabbit, U.S. Air Force. It should be Army though, right? Also, former mayor. I don't know if we listed him. Former mayor, 5 times, in fact. Welcome, Barry. Kei Fujimura, Navy. Bob Yaffe, Air Force. Got a lot of former mayors here that really served our country also. Former Mayor Sherman Cappy, U.S. Army. Sherry Rastam, Army. Hugh Villegas, Marine Corps. Alfredo Gaberton, U.S. Navy. Nazario Perlis, Navy. Taiso Gamo Jr., Coast Guard. There he is. Henry Rosdick, Air Force. Welcome. Jay Miller, Air Force. Roger Garrett, U.S. Army Reserve and Cal Army National Guard. Rick Royce, Air Force. Ray Romania, Navy. Andrew Laverde, Army. Marlene Beach, Navy. Bruce Capman, Army. Tom Beach, Army. Jack Queen, Navy. Chris Nowinoski, Marine Corps. Jerry Schultz, Army. Pete Kelly, Air Force. Tom Canstra, Army. Mike Ballantyne, U.S. Navy. Larry Good, Navy. Charles Adedima, Army. Fernando Herrera, Air Force. David Herrera, Air Force. Floyd Freeman, U.S. Army, World War II. Back here, 95 years old. Let's hear it for Floyd. 95 years old, or 95 years young. Floyd, welcome today. Thank you for being here. Don Platt, Navy. Donna S. Mihara, Army. Michael Park, Army. Robert Buell, Navy. Tom Kamstra, Army. Lee Cornell, Army. Flavio Dominguez, Army. Joe Stevens, Marine Corps. Alex Diaz, Army. Mario Diaz Jr., Marine Corps. Robert Flores, Army. Jesse Forgas, Marine Corps. Tiffany Forgas, Marine Corps. Karen Wilson, Army. John Wilson, Air Force. Charles Page, Army. There he is. Welcome. Alfredo Cuevas, Navy. David Rojas, Air Force. Dionisio Lamas, Navy. Sofal Ching, Army. Jim Edwards, Army. Thank you for all your veterans that have shown up today, and thank you for the families who have had veterans go before us. As a veteran, we always feel that we are a part of a group of people that are like no other people. We all have a bond, no matter if it's Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guard. We all have that bond together that we serve this great country, and we're so thankful that we live in this country and we have what we have today because of those who went before us and those veterans that are here today. So thank you for being here today. Appreciate it so much. And now I want to invite back the Valley Christian High School Madrigals, and they're going to perform the salute to the armed forces. And each year as we do this, we'll ask you to stand or wave when your military branch service is sung.
United States Air Force.
Off we go into the wild blue yonder, climbing high into the sun. Here they come to meet and in our thunder. Out of course, give her the gun, give her the gun. Down we rise, fighting a brave commander. Off with one, terrible roar. We live and pray, we will down and fame. We're nothing to stop the U.S. Air Force.
The United States Army.
First to fight for the right and to build the nation's might. And the Army goes rolling along. Proud of all we have done, fighting till the battle's won. And the Army goes rolling along. Then it's high, high, hey, the Army's on its way. Guns off, the king is out and strong. For wherever we go, you will always know that the Army goes rolling along.
The United States Coast Guard.
We're always ready for the goal. We place our trust in Thee. Through surf and storm and howling, I shall walk across thee. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame, our glory too. To fight, to save, or fight and die, I must stand over you.
The United States Navy.
Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail and break the day. Through our last night on shore, hail to the morn. Until we meet once more, here's wishing you a happy voyage home.
The United States Marines.
The walls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. We will fight our country's battles in the air, on land and sea. We'll survive for life and freedom, and to keep our honor clean. We are proud to play
behalf of the Valley Christian Madrigals, I'd like to thank you for allowing us the opportunity to participate today in this ceremony. It's our distinct pleasure to be here today and pay our respects to all veterans who are serving or who have served. At this time, I would like to ask that all veterans in attendance today, if you are able, would you please stand so that we may acknowledge your service and give you a thunderous round of applause. Please stand. Thank you for your service, and may God bless you all. God bless America.
Thank you again, Valley Christian Madrigals. Another round of applause for them, please. I want to thank them for coming. As you know, there is no school today, so they didn't really get a day off getting up early this morning. So we thank you for being here. At this time, I want to turn the program back over to Mayor Solanke, and he will continue.
Thank you, Councilmember Edward. The City of Cerritos is proud to honor America's veterans for their service. We celebrate their patriotism, love of the country, and willing to serve and sacrifice for the common good. They have defended the freedom of the United States, and their efforts have also protected democracy around the world. The veterans of Army, Marine, Navy, Air Force, and Coast Guard have ensured our right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. We also remember and honor those who gave their life in defense of our freedom. On Veterans Day, we remember these heroes for their valor, their loyalty, and their dedication. We would like to especially acknowledge Lieutenant Colonel Mario Carrazzo, a former resident of Cerritos. Lieutenant Colonel Carrazzo had long and honored career in United States Marine Corps. Lieutenant Colonel Carrazzo was killed in action on July 22, 2010, while flying a combat mission over Helmand Province, Afghanistan. His name is engraved in honor of the Cerritos Veteran Memorial. All veterans are to be honored for the inspiring work towards peace and freedom for all. At this time, I would like to invite Assemblywoman Garcia for comments.
Good morning, everyone. We are here to celebrate and honor those who have made the greatest sacrifice of all, the veterans. To all our service members who are here today, thank you for your service. Thank you for laying your life on the line to defend our freedoms. Mayor Solanke and Cerritos City Council members, thank you for putting together an honorable event for our community to celebrate and thank our veterans for their service. We salute the brave who have protected our democracy and our way of life, some making the ultimate sacrifice. California is home to 1.9 million veterans. That's more than any other state. This year, we did see some increased state funding for state veteran services, only a small down payment towards the gratitude that we need to be showing regularly for our veterans and their families. Over $20 million went for a new veteran cemetery in Orange County, over $800,000 to help upgrade the service provided by CalVet, $1.1 million to expand direct training and education services through CalTAP. But we can always do more to help our veterans. The state and the federal government do have several services and funds for a variety of needs. So if you're a vet or you know someone and they're not sure how to take advantage of these services, please contact our office to make sure that you're taking advantage of these benefits that you so deserve and earned. We can help with specific services designed for vets, such as healthcare assistance with MyCalVet, access to veteran housing and education programs like college tuition fee waivers and special home loan programs, employment services for vets through our EDD or CalJobs, and special driver's licenses and ID cards that can help veterans gain access to services. I want to help as many veterans connect to these resources. Moreover, the demographics of our veterans are changing and will continue to change. We'll have new conflicts and new wars, generational differences, needs, and services. Our forces are more diverse than ever before, both ethnically and in gender. In fact, women now make up 10% of our veterans, and that number rises yearly. And they're far younger than their male counterparts. They're also the vets whose percentage of homelessness is on the rise and not on the decline. Thus, our communities and veteran services must plan and adjust to meet these needs of all those who have served and will continue to serve. We can only do this together. And so as you reach out to our office to make sure we connect you to resources and services, I hope you also reach out to let us know how we could better serve you and honor you on a regular basis. Veterans Day is today, but in all honesty, we have to make sure we honor veterans year-round because the services, the freedoms, and the way of life is guaranteed because of the veterans year-round for the rest of us. We could honor them in lots of different ways, being civically engaged throughout our community. But I want to make sure that we're also honoring their families because there are also soldiers out there who make sacrifice with the veterans out there. So to the wives, the husbands, the children, the siblings, the parents who give up a great deal when someone they love serves in the military, thank you for your service. With that, I just want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank the city of Cerritos one more time for giving me the opportunity to celebrate today. God bless America. God bless our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Garcia. At this time, it is my pleasure to introduce Chief Tom Murphy of the California State Guard. Chief Murphy joined the U.S. Army in 1967, where he trained in infantry skill and rose to the rank of sergeant. He attended the parachute school and helicopter flight school and graduated as a flight warrant officer in 1969. Chief Murphy served in Vietnam for 15 months and upon his return, joined the California Army National Guard. He served in California Army National Guard from 1971 until 2020, performing 2 tours of duty in Iraq and Kuwait. Chief Murphy retired in 2010 and joined the California State Guard, for which he presently serves. He currently holds the rank of Chief Warrant Officer 5. Chief Murphy will now share a few words with us.
Well, thank you. You know, I had a few minutes this morning after getting ready, so I pulled out the dictionary and looked up the word veteran. And number one is someone with experience, with a vast amount of knowledge. So you have veteran policemen, veteran firemen, veteran cooks, veteran accountants, whatever. The second definition is the one that we're going to look at today, and that is one who has served in the armed forces. So how many veterans are out there? Raise your hand. There you go. For the rest of you, just sit back for the ride. You might learn something. Because a veteran is a special person, and veterans as a group are a special group. The story of my service might illustrate that slightly. As was mentioned, I joined the Army in '67, and the reason for that was that my mother would not sign. It must be time for me to go, is that it? Is that how they do it instead of the crook? Anyway, my mother wouldn't sign when I was 17, because by golly, I was going to be a soldier. So I turned 18 and joined, and went off and played Army and just had the time of my life. Was in the infantry, I like shooting, I like camping. What could be a better place to do it than that? But then flight school came along. I thought, okay, clean boots, clean sheets, good food must be the place for me. Of course, the problem with that was when I went to Vietnam, half of my class didn't come back. So Jim Cavender, the name that was read, he was my roommate. So the sacrifice that they talk about is sometimes something as little as going away, but other times it's as great as not coming back. So I did come back. I got lucky. I joined the Guard, smartest decision I ever made, because it allowed me to fly, keep flying. Graduate from college, keep flying. Get a beautiful wife, keep flying. Get a family, keep flying. Kids, all these things. Lead a life that would let me do things but still keep flying, keep serving. And then, of course, 9/11 came along. That changed a great many people's lives. It certainly changed mine. All of a sudden, the weekend warrior concept of the Guard, they promise you 2 days a month and all the donuts you can eat, became 15 months in the Middle East. And lo and behold, just like when I was a kid, I loved it. I never met a war I didn't like. Not everybody can say that, but I can. So 15 months later, came back, and the border came along, so we went down to the border, worked that first iteration of that service in 2006, and then 7 and 8 went back. I missed having sand in my boots. And then in 2010, they said, Tom, you're 61. What the hell are you doing here still? So they sent me packing. But you know what? I had all the uniforms. And because of that, I couldn't quit. So there is an organization in the state under the State Military Department was called the State Military Reserve, now it's called the Cal Guard, which allows you to serve the state, serve in the military and at the state level. We're not paid, but still we get out and we offer, hopefully, helpful services. So the word veteran, how does that apply? Well, it applied on active duty. It applied in the Guard as a reservist. It applied as a reservist going back to the Middle East. And it applies now as a State Guard person. So that's my story in a nutshell. Now what's yours? Everybody has a different answer. Somebody that sat next to me in the cockpit would have a different answer because the perception of their war and my war and your experience is all going to be different. But you know something that's odd? When I sit down or stand up with a group of veterans, there is always a commonality. There is always something that we can talk about. Let me give you a little story. The San Diego football team, that's the what? We went down and we were going to be honored on the field. So a group of us traipsed down there and they had a box for us and all the food we could eat. It was great. And stuck in there were people from the Marines, Navy, all the services. And then us, 3 Army guys. And you know what? We sat there, we laughed, we traded stories, swapped lies the way veterans do. And it was just that easy camaraderie that is something that veterans share. I don't go to work and do that with the people that I work with now. I didn't do it in the old days with Long Beach Unified Schools. I'd go to work, I'd come home. That was it. But you know what? You get a group of veterans together, and lo and behold, out comes the food, out comes the inspections, out come the NCOs you hated, out come the NCOs you loved. Doesn't matter. For years, I was in recruiting. And of course, that's the art of getting people to give up something valuable to them, their time, and give us what we want, which is their body. So one of the questions I would always ask was, well, first of all, did you serve? And if the answer is yes, then we would progress. Otherwise, we'd take a different route. But if the answer was yes, it would be, all right, what do you remember that you liked? And I'd stand there. Because then I'd start seeing that little smile kind of grow up on the edge. And I'd say, okay, wait a minute, don't even tell me yet. I'll bet you're thinking about some stupid thing you did with somebody that was just a head shaking. Did I get an amen? With somebody that was just a good buddy and a group of good people, and you know what? You got the job done. And maybe it was the right way to do it, and maybe it was another way to do it, but it was still a way to do it. And that's something that veterans share. They have a common base that is uncommon. It's uncommon because if you did not serve, you do not have that experience. When I got back, I talked to nobody about Vietnam. The reason? Who could understand it? If you weren't there, you just didn't know. Walter Cronkite did not tell the whole story. I'm sorry. But when I joined the Guard and started flying and hanging out with a bunch of punk kids like me, all back from Vietnam, all combat pilots, then you know what? we would sit down and we would and could talk. Now, World War II is a little different, and I salute you, sir. I saw you coming in, and I thought, okay, he's been there. Those guys came back usually on troop ships, so they would sit around and just chaw the fat and get it off their backs. We didn't do that. I came home, and in 13 hours, I went from Saigon to home. Well, that wasn't a whole lot of time to get it off my chest. So it was good to find those guys that I was flying with that I could talk to, because we had that common base. But just like those guys down in San Diego, it does not matter what service you were in. Spouses tell me this, or at least think of this. Don't really tell me, I don't want to hear it. But how many of your significant others put all of their clothes in the closet with the buttons facing to the right? Can I get an amen? Because you know what? That's how we learned how to do it in basic training, in boot camp. Because if you didn't, woe unto you. That's where you got those NCOs that you tell the bad side of the stories about. They were all over you, because that was the way to do it. And you know what? It wasn't a bad way. So that's part of that base of experience. So today when you look around, and I know we've done it, let me see it again. How many Army hands out there? I'm partial, I got it, okay, thank you. How about the Air Force? And you know, another part of that easy camaraderie is that nobody gets off the hook. The Air Force, for example, is noted for building the officers' club before they build the runway. That's okay. How about the Marine Corps? See those hands? I don't want to hear that. Now, see, you threw it back at me, and that's okay, because that's the way it works. Seagoing bellhops have an enormous amount of pride, and that's the way it ought to be. How about you coasties? There's one over here, I know. There he is, lonely, isn't he? But I'll tell you something, the Coast Guard was the first service to get the M9 service pistol, the 9mm Beretta 92F, because they're the ones that go out every single day on those high seas, and they have a mission every single day. Because otherwise, you're either overseas fighting or you're waiting to fight. That's it. I mean, that's the life, just the way it is. Coasties, they're out there every stinking day doing what they do and doing it well. So, you know, when you think about it today, reflect on the fact of what you, the veterans, have done, and be proud of it. Because it's very exclusive. If you don't believe that, think about the hassle you had to get in. I don't care if you came in kicking and screaming, because you were drafted way back when, or if you came in willingly and just were happy as a pig in mud to be there like me. You know what? You still had to go through the mental, you had to go through the physical, you had to go through the written, you had to go through all those different things to prove you were good enough to wear that uniform. Think about it. That's a pretty exclusive group. And for the people that went to Canada, I gotta say it, it's funny how the worm turns. It just is. You think about it, back then they were lying and scheming and cheating to get out of it. I had a friend that went over and he took his physical, and he came out and he was just smiling ear to ear, and he said, you know what? I got 4F. I said, why, Gary? Because I stuttered. I said, Gary, think about this for just a minute. Had you gone, you would have gone for 3 years. But as it is, you're going to stutter the rest of your life. Now, what kind of trade is that? It didn't sound like a very good deal to me. So nowadays, in recruiting, we find it. I got 2 of them sitting right here. You can go ask if I'm lying. They'll probably tell you I lie a lot, but not about this. Because nowadays, you got people lying and cheating and scheming to tell you about the service back when that they never did. Now think about that for just a minute. That they never performed. That they wheedled, finagled, lied, and cheated to get out of. But you know what? Everybody sitting in this audience didn't. The people in this audience went. You liked it, you hated it. I don't care. Because you know what? Everybody out there is an individual person. But the important thing is what? You went. So I salute you. And everybody here should. And you know what? Let me tell you one more little short story, and then I'll shut up. My father-in-law was a submariner. He was on submarines during World War II. And one day I sat down and I said, you know what? Tell me some stories. It's a little emotional for me. And he just opened up and had all these great stories. And you know what? Nobody had ever asked him for that story. Nobody cared enough to ask him about the Sea of Japan and depth charges. So you ask your veteran, where'd you go? What'd you do? What'd you see? You just might be surprised at the story. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Murphy, for your meaningful remarks. To honor the beauty and bravery of life, the laying of flower at memorial site is a ritual that occurs around the world. At this time in our program, we will pause for a moment, and I would like to ask everyone who has a wreath to present at place gather near the platform. I'd like to invite representatives from First CEB Adoption Committee to lay the wreath at the Veterans Memorial. And now I'd like to invite my council colleagues on the behalf of the City of Cerritos and our special guest on the stage to join me in placing the wreath at the Veterans Memorial. We place this wreath in the honor of all veterans with special remembrance of our hometown hero, Lieutenant Colonel Carazo. At this time, please join me with a moment of silence. I'd now like to reintroduce the Cerritos College Community Band, which will perform the patriotic music selection. Thank you, Cerritos College Community Band, for that moving performance. I'd now like to invite Chaplain Captain Erickson back to the podium to present the benediction.
I invite you to pray with me as I pray in my faith tradition. Our Heavenly Father, we ask your benediction to rest on us this day as you have graciously preserved our nation through the years and have led us in wondrous ways. Grant that we may be worthy of our high calling as a nation. As we depart, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord make his face to shine upon you, be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face towards you and give you peace. Amen. I ask that you'd stand for taps.
Thank you, Captain Erickson, for the presenting that meaningful benediction. I'd like to thank everyone once again for joining us today for the City of Cerritos Veterans Day program. I'd like to give special thanks to Cerritos College Community Band, Southeast Academy Military and Law Enforcement High School, the member of Scout Troop 693 and Troop 72, and the Club Tech 72, and the Valley Christian High School, Madrigals, for their participation in today's event. Please join in refreshment and visiting our honored veterans, and have a wonderful day, and God bless all the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you.